Hello, my amiable students. In this lesson, we'll be looking at Nigeria's climate. What are the climatic zones in Nigeria? We'll discuss the climatic zones in Nigeria, the factors that affect climate in general, and the four factors that affect Nigeria climate in particular. We're going to look at the factors that affect each zone and the rainfall, climatic conditions, and other elements in each zone. Climate is the average atmospheric condition for a long duration of time, like 35 or 34 years. So, elements in weather within this climate can be affected by variables like latitude, ocean current, wind, elevation, relief, and nearness to sea, which can be used to make acronym that is termed lowering. But on all those factors that we mentioned, few or four tend to affect the climate or impact the climate of Nigeria. The strongest of these factors are ocean current or nearness to sea, elevation and relief, movement of air masses and wind. We tend to dictate other factors in the country and demarcate the country into four climatic zones. Looking at them one after the other, ocean current and nearness to sea means that in the ocean or the sea, there tend to be variable of land and sea breezes. As the land is heated more than the water, it tends to develop a variation in pressure bed. And we are told that wind tend to flow from high pressure bed to low pressure areas. So as the land is heated more during the day, it tend to develop a low pressure area, while the sea tend to be relatively cool, developing a high pressure area. So during the day, wind tend to blow from the sea landward, making the land to be relatively cool. So all areas that are within the ocean current area and coastal areas tend to have a moderated temperature. Then for the second variable, which is elevation and relief, elevation tend to say that as we advance upward, the cooler it will become. So for every 1,000 feet, there is a drop in temperature to an extent which is regarded as temperature lapse. So to this lapse, as you continue to advance, if there is a mountain range that is very high, there is a tendency that at the top there will be aping or cold zone that is mainly either in freezing point or in thaw point depending on the seasons. For relief, a mountain or a plateau tend to serve as a geographical barrier as the wind tend to blow. Wind is forced to rise. As it rises, it's heated, expands. As it expands, it cools, condenses, and there is precipitation. But the precipitation is only on one side, which is the windward side of the mountain. Then on the leadward side, there is barrenness and dry wind. Areas that are on the slope that tend to be windward tend to experience high amount of rainfall and cool temperature, while on the other side there is a rain shadow and dryness and haziness. So this will affect the base and the top in climate or weather of the people. At high tops in Nigeria, we tend to have mountain vegetation or what we regard as highland vegetation that tend to be different from others with climate, as temperature and rainfall is being moderated by altitude, making the rainfall to be mainly orographic instead of conventional. The highest factor that tend to dictate how the climate of the country looks like is mainly the movement of air masses and wind across the country. The air masses that we have in the country are maritime wind and intercontinental tropical wind. We also have equatorial easterlies in areas where these two winds tend to converge, having an intercontinental converging zone. But the winds that blow in Nigeria are mainly winds that blow within the equatorial region, because we are told that as wind tend to be developed due to the high pressure belt and the low pressure belt that is set up within the subtropical equatorial zone and the equatorial region, trade winds tend to flow to areas of low pressure. So in Nigeria, trade winds are mainly the winds that blow across the country. Trade winds are winds that blow in constant direction in a given force. Two trade winds that we have in the country are northeast trade winds and southwest trade winds. The northeast trade winds tend to be part of the continental wind air mass, while the southwest is being bundled with the maritime wind. The seasons in the country are mainly variable depending on the zone. In the north, we have two seasons, while in the south, the two seasons are splitted into four, having the short dry season from November to March, the long wet season from April to July, and the short dry season as August break. Then we also have the short wet season in the south as from September to October. Then in the north, we have long dry season from October to April, while short wet season tend to be erratic and tend to decline in extent and quality as you move northward till you get to Niger border. Then the short wet season tend to take place in May to September. The distribution of rainfall and relative humidity falls as we move upward towards the Niger border, because the rain-bearing wind from the moisture-laden wind of the maritime wind and the southwest trade wind tend to come from the Atlantic Ocean, far from the northern zone. So the four climatic zones that we have in the country are sub-equatorial south, that is within the equatorial region from Warri upward into the forest zones. Then we also have tropical hinterland within the bed of the Niger and Benue trough. Then far northward or far north before the Benin Republic, we have tropical continental north. In places where we have high mountains and plateaus, we have mountain climate and highland climate. Looking at the factors very closely, we said nearness to sea means that during the day, land get heated faster than waters or the adjacent waters. Now make air to rise and flow to the land as the land now develop low pressure bed, while the sea is comparatively cool with its high pressure. Then wind now tend to blow from high pressure area in the sea towards the land to serve as sea breezes that cool the coastal areas. So the coastal areas are highly cool and temperate for a while, until change in the status quo is being effected by rising convectional current that makes the area to always be raining throughout the year, having double maxima peaks within the sub-equatorial regions, with states like Lagos and places like Port Harcourt, Opobo, Forcados and others. Elevation and relief is also a greater factor due to temperature lapse, because as you continue to move upward, temperature tend to decline till you get to a high point that becomes aping or cool, where temperatures are minus zero or beyond zero. So in Nigeria, the Jos Plateau, Shere, Shebeshe, Atlantica, Mandara and others like Oban and Obodo is being moderated, and this affects the temperature and rainfall in the area. These plateaus in Nigeria are cool and conducive in its climatic form, which tend to support high amount of agriculture and population growth. The rainfall in these areas are mainly orographic, while the leeward side of the plateaus or mountains are mainly barren. Then moving to the third factor, which is the major factor, that is movement of the air masses and wind. Generally, Nigeria is a northern hemisphere nation within the tropics, so trade winds will apparently be visible in this zone. In January, as the apparent movement of the sun goes south, high pressure belt is being developed in Agadez near Mauritania or the Sahara Desert. Trade wind is born and they tend to flow in a given force towards the country. So the whole of the country will witness haziness, dryness and coolness from November to January. This dryness tend to take us to March as seasons will now change. But then this wind that is northeast trade is called harmattan locally, which tend to distribute far down to the sub-equatorial areas, moving across the tropical hinterland. Then at the base of the country, closer to Lagos, Warri and Benin, a zone is set up as intertropical convergence zone, where the two air masses tend to occulate. The separation zone tend to serve as the limit of double maxima peak of rainfall, as places within Port Harcourt, Lagos, Opobo, Warri and others within the equatorial region also witness rainfall, undermining the movement and the coming of the northeast trades. Within this separation zone, another equatorial easterlies, which is the third air mass, now flows in to separate the two. From the far north to middle of the country, we now witness dryness, while the maritime air mass and the southeast trade winds will also be operating below the intercontinental convergence zone nearer to the Atlantic Ocean until June, when the conditions will change as the sun globally moves to the northern hemisphere. So as the sun moves to the northern hemisphere, it becomes the northern hemisphere summer globally. High pressure belt will now be developed in Botswana near the Republic of South Africa. Then in Nigeria, as the southwest trade winds develop, it forms bundle with the maritime air mass and they blow or sweep across the Atlantic Ocean to form a moisture-laden wind that comes into the country between June, July, August and September. Because it is highly moisture-laden, it tends to be rain-bearing, bringing rain to most parts of the country. As the wind tend to move inland towards northern Nigeria, most of the moisture is lost as we move closer to Niger Republic. So the extent and quality of rainfall tend to be high in the sub-equatorial south by Lagos, Warri, Forcados, Opobo, Koko, Sapele and Benin, while in the hinterland the amount of rainfall tend to be sustained. But as we move close to the Niger border, rain tend to be scanty and the level of dryness tend to increase. Looking at the characteristics, what are the characteristics of the climatic belts in Nigeria? The first climatic belt closer to the Atlantic Ocean in the south is the sub-equatorial south. It is located near the equatorial region where you have Lagos, Warri, Sapele, Benin, Koko, Opobo, Forcados, Escravos and others. It is termed a sub-equatorial region. In this region, rainfall and relative humidity graph tend to have double maximum peaks. Rainfall tend to be greater than 250 millimeter to 2000 centimeter, and this rainfall tend to be all year round, with annual rainfall being pegged in millimeter that is greater than 3000. Then the relative humidity most of the times is greater than 90%. Most of its months are rainy in the far south, while moving up north they have more than 4 months of rainfall. The second zone is the tropical hinterland. Tropical hinterland is within the center part of the country where you have your Niger and Benue trough. So we have places like Makurdi, Minna, Yola and others. It marks the limit with rainfall graph that is double maximum. Its total rainfall is from 1000 to 1500 millimeters. It has up to 4 months of rainfall, but those that are closer to the north has lower than 4 months of rainfall, with its relative humidity being pegged at 80% and below. Moving northward, or in the north proper, we have tropical continental north in Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna, Maiduguri and Bauchi. This marks the area with single rain peak or prolonged or protracted dry seasons with dryness in most areas. Annual rainfall is lower than 500 to 1000 millimeters. This tends to reduce in quality and extent as we move northward till we get to the Niger border. It has 4 to 8 months of dryness with relative humidity to be below 60%. The last climate zone is the moderated climate zone that is referred to as the mountain climate, where rainfall and other elements are being moderated by temperature lags. In most places or plateaus in Nigeria with high peaks, we have these moderations in Jos Plateau, while rainfall is mainly orographic at the top and conventional at the base. Its windward side is mainly agriculturally viable, while its leeward side is barren, with a total rainfall that is higher than other areas around it in the hinterland and the tropical continental north. Its relative humidity is above 70, while rainfall is about 1400 millimeters annually. We have this in bereft stations like Jos, Adamawa, Obodo Ranch in Calabar and others.